Part 1. The Field on Rosewood Lane. There's a photo on my fridge, sun-faded, dog-eared, and held in place by a novelty magnet shaped like a turtle. You can barely make out the details anymore. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, sitting in the grass with matching crooked smiles. Between them, a rusted metal lunchbox and a shovel almost twice their size. It's dated July 12, 2009. We just buried our 3rd time capsule. I was 11. She had just turned 10. Her name was Wren Carter. And that summer, I swore I'd never forget her. Rosewood Lane wasn't anything special. A dead-end street with 7 houses, 4 speed bumps, and a single streetlight that flickered whenever it rained. But to us, the neighborhood kids, it was our entire universe. The field at the end of the cul-de-sac was the epicenter of that world. Half wild, half forgotten land, full of tall grass, humming cicadas, and a massive birch tree that stood like a lighthouse in the sea of summer. If you knew the right angle, the right rock to step on, you could climb halfway up and see all the rooftops of Rosewood like a patchwork quilt. No one owned the field. It just was. And it became ours. Wren and her family moved in during the spring of 2006. She had a gap between her front teeth, a mop of brown curls always tangled with leaves, and a fearless way of talking that made most adults pause mid-sentence. The first time I saw her, she was walking barefoot across our lawn holding a turtle. She didn't say hello. She said, "This is Harold. He likes carrots and silence. Are you loud?" I told her, yes, but Harold wouldn't have to worry. I had a basement. She squinted at me, considered this, then nodded. From that moment on, we were inseparable. That first summer, we were obsessed with digging. We found an old plastic shovel in my garage and declared it sacred. Wren named it the ground key. We dug holes everywhere, behind shrubs, under bushes, beside curbs, but always carefully, respectfully, like the earth was hiding things on purpose. One afternoon, she brought an empty peanut butter jar and whispered, "Do you want to bury your heart where no one can find it?" I said, "Do I have to take it out first?" She rolled her eyes. "No, dummy. It's a metaphor." I didn't know what a metaphor was, but I said yes anyway. We each wrote a note, hers on lined paper, mine on a napkin, and sealed them in the jar. Then we buried it beneath the birch tree, 1 foot deep. Wren said, "This is our first capsule. Only open it in 10 years or when the world ends, whichever comes first." We did it every summer after that, upgraded from peanut butter jars to lunchboxes, from napkins to proper notebooks. By the 3rd year, we had our ritual down. Pick a Saturday in July. Meet at sunrise, wear matching bandanas. Hers always red, mine blue. And bring 1 object of meaning and 1 letter to future us. We buried everything: toys, drawings, poems, even one of Harold's baby turtle shells when he outgrew it. We also made rules. 1. Only open in 10 years. 2. Never open alone. 3. Always bury under the same tree. 4. If we ever moved apart, the other had to guard the capsules. 5. If both of us forgot, the tree would remember. Wren insisted the tree was magic. She said it had veins made of silver and roots that could whisper. She once made me lie down with my ear against the bark and just listen. I said I didn't hear anything. She said, "Then you're not listening right." I had my first kiss under that tree. It was July 2011. We just buried the 5th capsule. It was hotter than sin, and we were both covered in mosquito bites and dirt. She looked at me, suddenly serious, and said, "We should probably practice kissing." "For science?" I asked. She nodded. "For future reference, so we're not weird about it later." It was quick, silly, but I remember it more clearly than any kiss that came after. Wren wrote everything down. She had a red spiral notebook called the Book of Versions, where she numbered every year of her life as a software update. 2006 was Wren 1.0, 2007 was Wren 2.0, and so on. In her 2015 entry, she wrote Wren 10.0, current bugs, nostalgia, overattachment, trust issues. Still works though. That was the last summer I saw her, the week before her family disappeared. We buried our 10th capsule. She was quieter that year, more distant. The tree had grown thinner, or maybe we had grown bigger. But the stone marker was still there, an old paving stone with a crudely scratched LW. She told me this capsule was special, that it had something different inside. She wouldn't let me see her letter. She kissed my cheek when we finished burying it. Then she said, "If I ever vanish, find this. Read it, even if it doesn't make sense." I asked, "Why wouldn't it?" She just smiled. 2 weeks later, the Carters were gone. No warning, no moving truck, no goodbye. Just darkness in the windows and an empty porch. I rang the doorbell, knocked, called, nothing. I stood outside for hours. Eventually, I found a letter in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just the word sorry. No signature, just W. Years passed. I tried to forget. I went to high school, got braces, grew 3 inches, dated a girl who liked horror movies, and never met my mom. I stopped thinking about the capsules. Stopped walking past the field. Stopped looking for the tree. I told myself it was just childhood, that nothing buried in the dirt really mattered, that Wren Carter had been a dream, like most summers. But some promises don't age, they only dig deeper. I moved to Portland for college, got a tech internship, bought a plant, and let it die. I told myself I was fine. Told myself I'd stopped checking Facebook for her name, stopped imagining bumping into her on a sidewalk in some city where time didn't hurt so much. But I never stopped thinking about that last summer. The way she said, "Even if it doesn't make sense." Last month, my mom called. She said she was selling the house, downsizing, moving in with my aunt. She asked if I wanted to come get any of my ancient clutter before she donated it. So I drove back to Rosewood Lane. First time in almost 10 years. The house looked smaller. The mailbox was rusted shut, but the field was still there, overgrown, wilder, but still breathing. The tree was gone, snapped in a windstorm years ago, Mom said. But I recognized the slope of the earth and the stone, covered in moss, but unmistakable. Lasnog. I brought a shovel. I told myself it was stupid, but I dug anyway. 2 feet down, the thunk of metal. I pulled out a rusted lunchbox wrapped in duct tape. Fingers shaking, I pried it open. Inside, candy wrappers, a folded map of the field, a photo of us under the tree, and 2 letters, one addressed to future Wren, the other addressed to me, dated July 14th, 2025, 3 days from now. The envelope wasn't sealed. Inside, her handwriting unchanged, sharp, slanted, full of gravity. If you're reading this, it means you didn't forget. That's good. I was afraid you might. I need your help. On July 14th at 3:33 p.m., go back to the field. Stand where the tree used to be. Don't speak, don't leave, just wait. You'll know what to do when it happens. A. W. No phone number, no email, no clue how a 10-year-old time capsule could hold a letter from the future. Only a brass key taped to the bottom. Smooth, unmarked, still warm to the touch. That was yesterday. Now it's July 12th. And for the first time in a decade, I feel like the world is whispering again, just like she said it would. To be continued in part 2. Part 2. The Girl Beneath the Birch Tree. July 13th, 2025, 2:07 p.m. I couldn't sit still. I'd been pacing my mom's old living room for the past 2 hours, staring at the letter, flipping the brass key in my hand like a coin, and occasionally checking the time like it might tell me something more than it already had. No new information. Still July 13th. Still not 3:33. Still nothing in the world that made sense of how a girl I hadn't seen in 10 years had left me a letter dated 3 days ahead. I tried convincing myself it was a prank. Maybe someone found the capsule before me. Maybe they wrote the note as a joke. Maybe it wasn't even Wren's handwriting. But I knew it was. She wrote her capital W's with a double loop on the second stroke, like a bird in flight. No one else I've ever met does that. And the phrase, "you didn't forget?" That's exactly the kind of thing she would say. That was her fear, always. That time would bury people faster than dirt ever could. I sat on the edge of the couch and unfolded her old letter again, the one we buried together in 2015. Her 10-year-old self had written, "If the door still works, use it. If not, you know what to do." The door? I didn't remember anything about a door, except flashback, summer 2013, Wren 8.0. We decided that year our capsule had to be different, more secret, more magical, more serious. She brought a shoebox filled with broken gadgets, glow-in-the-dark stars, a pencil with no eraser, and something wrapped in tin foil. "It's a map," she whispered. "To what?" "To everything." She unwrapped it carefully. It was a crayon drawing of a house, but not hers, not mine. A tiny wooden shack with a single round window and no visible door. Except, Wren said, the door wasn't on the outside. "It opens from the inside," she explained. "It's like the opposite of normal." "And what's inside?" "Me," she said. "Or at least, somewhere inside. The version I'm supposed to become." That conversation came flooding back like warm rain. The shack, the invisible door, Wren's belief that some version of her was waiting to be unlocked 10 summers into the future. A secret self, a version with answers. July 13th, 2025, 3:44 p.m. I couldn't wait anymore. I drove to the edge of Rosewood Lane, parked under the broken streetlight, and walked toward the field. The grass was taller than before, waist-high in some places, and wildflowers had colonized the old walking path. Bees buzzed lazily through the air. It smelled like heat and nostalgia. The stone was still there, L-Y, and next to it, a dent in the earth, as if something had been unearthed recently or reburied. I sat down next to the spot and stared at the ground. Nothing. No sounds except wind. No sense of magic. No Wren. I laid the letter out next to me, placed the key on top, and waited. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. Then the sun dipped just low enough to cast the field in amber. That's when I heard it. A faint hum, barely audible, like a refrigerator, or the tension in the air before lightning. Then, a breeze. It came from nowhere, from beneath me, and the stone shifted. Just a little. I leaned down, fingers on the edge of the mossy slab, pulled, and something clicked. The ground beneath the marker opened like a trapdoor. A narrow, wood-lined passage yawned beneath. Cool air rushed out, smelled like dust and pine, and faintly vanilla. Exactly like Wren's house had smelled when we were kids. I swallowed, slipped my phone out of my pocket, flashlight on, and descended. The tunnel was shallow, just 6 steps down into what looked like a root cellar. Wooden walls, earthen floor. A lantern hung from a hook, already lit. Beside it, a wooden chair and a metal box. On the box, another note. This one newer, fresher. Handwritten. You're early. That's okay. So was I. I opened the box. Inside, a camcorder. Mini DV. Old school. Taped to the side, a fresh battery. A post-it read, "Watch me before the 14th. I took the camcorder home and spent the rest of the night figuring out how to hook it to my laptop. I had to order a FireWire to USB adapter and pay extra for 1-day shipping. I didn't sleep. July 14th, 2025, 2:58 p.m. I sat on the floor of my childhood bedroom, the camera in my lap, the screen glowing softly. I pressed play. Wren appeared. Not the girl from my memories, older, maybe 24, 25. Hair longer, eyes sharper, but the same smirk, the same Wrenness I could have picked out from a million strangers. She sat in what looked like the same wooden room I'd found under the stone. Behind her, the lantern. Her voice was calm, measured. "Hi, Liam," or whatever version of you found this. "If you're watching, the field opened for you too. That's good. It means the loop hasn't broken yet." Loop? I know this doesn't make sense. It didn't for me either. Not at first. But here's what matters. Every 10 years, something chooses. Not people, not fate. Something older, deeper, like memory, but alive. It calls 2 people, 2 versions of the same story. You and me. And it asks, are you ready to remember? She reached off camera and held up something. The brass key. This unlocks the second capsule, the one we didn't bury. The one that buried us. The screen went black. Then a new video began. Footage from a handheld camera, shaky, slightly overexposed. It was us, me and Wren, maybe age 9, running through the field, laughing. She turned to the camera and yelled, "Don't forget, promise me." And I shouted back, "I promise." Then the screen froze, a pause, and present-day Wren's voice said, "Now ask yourself, what did we forget? And why did someone want us to?" The screen faded, and a new message appeared in white text. 3:33, the field, bring the key, don't speak. It was time. To be continued in Part 3. Part 3, the capsule that wasn't buried. July 14th, 2025, 3:26 p.m. The brass key sat in my palm, heavy in a way it hadn't been yesterday. Maybe it was my nerves. Maybe it was the knowledge that something waited for me under the field at 3:33 p.m., just like Wren's letter, her future letter, said it would. The video had been playing in my head on loop for hours. Her voice, that version of her, older, smarter, sharper, looking into the camera and saying things that didn't make sense. There's a second capsule, the one we didn't bury. The one that buried us? What did that mean? Did we forget something? Or were we made to? I stood at the edge of the field now. The tall grass moved like ocean waves. The sky was too blue, too quiet. No wind, no birds, just the tension of a clock ticking silently towards some invisible event. I stepped into the grass, the same way I had dozens of times as a kid, but this time felt different. The ground crunched in strange places. The air smelled like electricity. And as I moved toward the stone with LW still etched faintly in its mossy surface, the hum began again. Low, vibrating under my feet, like the earth was waking up. 3:31 p.m., I crouched and placed the brass key on the stone, waited, didn't speak, didn't move, just like she said. At 3:32, the hum grew louder, but now I could feel it in my chest, like bass, like breath. And then at exactly 3:33 p.m., the stone cracked, just like before. A small trapdoor beneath it lifted open, revealing a staircase of wood and dirt and roots that led into the ground. The lantern was lit again, but this time there was something else beside it. A door, metal, half-rusted, small, no taller than 4 feet, no handle, just a tiny keyhole in the center. I descended slowly. The door looked like something out of a submarine, thick, sealed, as if it had been waiting for 100 years. I knelt in front of it. The key fit perfectly. I turned it, and the door clicked open. Inside, the space was circular, lined with shelves, books, artifacts, and handwritten notes, pinned like stars along the curved walls. It was like walking into a secret memory palace. And at the center of it all, a second lunchbox, this one pristine, clean, polished metal with no rust, no dust, no signs of age. On top, a tag, open last. Beneath it, a stack of envelopes, each with a date, all in my handwriting. 2025, 2020, 2015, 2010. Even one marked 2006, the year we met. I picked it up, shaking, opened it. Inside, a drawing, crayon on notebook paper. Me and Wren, holding hands beneath the birch tree. Her turtle Harold between us, and in the sky above us, a series of stars forming a circle. In the corner, written in a child's shaky scrawl, "This is where we go when we wake up." I didn't remember drawing this, but I had drawn it. My name was signed at the bottom, and Wren had written beside it, "Remember the promise." I sat back, heart pounding. What was this place? Who built it? Us? Someone else? Why were there letters from every era of our lives, including ones I was sure I hadn't written yet? I picked up the 2020 envelope, opened it. Inside, a typed note. Version 7 failed. Wren forgot too much. Do not tell her yet. The field chooses again in 5 years. Until then, preserve memory, preserve hope. You must become the anchor this time. There was no signature, only an identifier. Liam 6.1 export. I staggered back, looked around the room again, and saw on the far wall a mirror. But it didn't reflect me. It reflected us. Me and Wren, aged 13 or 14, sitting in the field, laughing. Her drawing on my knee, a notebook in her lap. Then the mirror glitched. The image flickered, and I saw myself, now, sitting in this room, alone, with dozens of letters behind me. The caption below the image read, "Active thread, Liam 7.4, stability 62%, overwrite pending." I turned to the lunchbox, the one that said open last. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside, a cassette tape, an old Sony Walkman beside it, and a single photograph, not from childhood, recent. Wren, at maybe 25, standing in front of the tree that no longer exists, smiling, eyes tired but bright. On the back of the photo, "This is the last time it worked. This is the reset. If you're here, you're the last one. Don't rewind again. Just remember. Just choose." I put the cassette into the Walkman, hit play. Her voice, older, weary, but warm. "Hey, Liam. If you're listening, it means you made it to the bottom again. That's good, I think. I've left as much as I could. Notes, threads, pieces. But they always fade when the loop restarts. The field forgets. The house forgets. We forget. Except you. You're the anchor. This time, it's you. You're the one who has to remember both of us." The tape ended, and the lights in the capsule flickered. Once, then held steady. I looked around at the memory room again. The capsules, the pages, the lives stacked like pages in a story we didn't know we were writing. And I realized this wasn't just about me and Wren. It was about all the versions of us. Across every summer, every promise, every time capsule, every time we said 10 years and hoped we'd still be there to open it. The field didn't keep our memories. It was our memory, buried in layers, waiting to be unlocked, but only if both of us were brave enough to return. Only if both of us remembered at the same time. I walked up the stairs slowly. The sun was still out. 3:57 p.m. But the world felt quieter now. Not like the end. Not like a reset. More like the pause between breaths. The moment when you choose whether to speak or stay silent forever. I looked back toward the field, and for a moment, just a second, I saw her, Wren, standing by the tree that wasn't there, hair in the wind, eyes on me. She smiled and lifted a finger to her lips. "Don't speak, just remember." Then she was gone. To be continued in Part 4. Part 4, the Book of Versions, July 15th, 2025, 8:09 a.m. I woke up before my alarm. Not from noise, not from a dream. Just woke up, as if my body knew today mattered. The brass key was still in my pocket. The cassette, Wren's voice, her last message, played in my head on repeat. "You're the anchor. This time, it's you." The image of her by the tree that wasn't there wouldn't leave me. She looked real. Not a memory, not a ghost, but present, watching, waiting. I didn't go to work, didn't check my phone, didn't even make coffee. I went back to the field. The grass was still thick and uncut, shimmering under the early light, like gold threads in a blanket no one had folded properly. But something was different. The stone, The old LW marker was gone. In its place, a notebook, red, spiral-bound, old but clean, untouched by weather or time. The title scratched across the cover in silver ink. Wren 17.0, The Book of Versions. My throat closed a little as I picked it up. I hadn't seen this since I was 14. The original version had drawings of turtles, quotes from sci-fi books, and rating scales for every flavor of juice box we ever shared. But this was different. It was organized, structured, like an engineer's manual. First page. This is where I remember. This is where you begin. Liam, you always forget around version 6. If you're still reading, then maybe this time it's different. Below that, a flowchart, labeled timelines, diverging branches, at the center of every one. Field capsule equals trigger point. I flipped to the next page, and there she was, young Wren, sketched in pencil. Hair wild, eyes mischievous. Caption, Wren 10.0, unaware of anchor status. There were notes, tons of them, some in her handwriting, some clearly mine. One margin note, loop resets after 10 years of memory decay. Field equals anchor site. Tree equals access point. Capsule equals memory stabilizer. Another, only one can remember fully per cycle. Anchor must choose to continue or collapse loop. My stomach dropped. What was this? A game? The diary? Or something worse? Halfway through the book, I found a folded letter, my name on the front. Inside, you were supposed to leave, but you stayed. Good, because if you're still here, it means I was right. That memory isn't just something that fades. It's something that can be kept. And we've been keeping it for each other for a long, long time. You think we're 25, but we've done this 16 times before. This is loop 17. And this time I want to finish. My hands trembled as I flipped to the final page of the notebook. It was blank, except for a short line at the top. Field reset authorized. Final sync, midnight, July 17th. Do not speak. Do not look back. I sat down in the grass. Not to think, just to breathe. To feel the weight of what I'd found, or remembered, or become. The book of versions. The capsule that wasn't buried. The reflection in the mirror that didn't blink. What if it was all true? What if this field, this ritual, this whole thing was more than nostalgia? More than metaphor? What if it was a memory machine? I closed my eyes, and the past rolled over me like a tide. Wren whispering secrets behind a lemonade stand. Wren yelling, "Don't you dare forget me," the night before middle school graduation. Wren with her hand on my chest saying, "You'll remember. I know you will. Even if it takes 100 summers." Maybe it had. When I opened my eyes again, the notebook was gone. In its place, a toy compass. Plastic, purple, needle twitching like it had somewhere to be. I picked it up, on the back scratched into the plastic, to the door. I stood, turned toward the edge of the field. The compass spun wildly, then locked, pointing toward the old Carter house, Wren's house, the one that had been empty for 10 years. I walked slowly, heart hammering. The porch still sagged, the shutters still leaned like tired shoulders, but the front door was open, just a crack, inviting. Inside, dust coated everything. Couches, tables, even the turtle tank. But in the center of the living room, clean, untouched, was a desk. and on the desk, a reel-to-reel recorder. Next to it, a label, Wren 17.0, Field Sync Final Memo. I press play. Her voice again, older, calmer, resolved. Hi, Liam. You made it further than ever before. I don't know if I'm still alive in this version. I don't know if I made it past the loop. But you're listening. And that means you're still the anchor. I don't want to forget again, not this time. So here's what we do. Midnight, July 17th. We meet where the field opens. No talking, no questions. Just hold my hand and choose. I rewound the tape, played it again and again, until her voice was the only thing left in my mind. Outside, the wind picked up, and in the mirror above the mantel, I saw them. Two reflections, me and Wren, standing side by side. But in the room, I was still alone. To be continued in Part 5, July 17th, 2025, 11:23 p.m. The stars were out, too many, too bright, like they'd been watching and waiting for this night, for this exact hour. I stood at the edge of the field, my shoes buried in the wild grass, my hands trembling in my jacket pockets. The plastic compass hung from my neck, swinging slightly, the needle pointed dead ahead, to the spot where the tree used to be. The field looked almost ordinary. No pulsing lights, no glowing ground, no signs that anything extraordinary had ever happened here, except the fact that I knew something had. And that something was about to again, in less than 10 minutes. The Book of Versions had said, midnight, July 17, do not speak, do not look back. The cassette had said, just hold my hand and choose. That was it. No more instructions, no safety net, just memory, just us. I stepped into the tall grass, following the invisible path I knew by heart. 10 steps north, 3 left. Stop at the dip in the ground where we used to sit every July and write letters to the future. The dirt was sauced here, always had been. I stood still, waited, watched the second hand tick past 11:30, then 11:40, then 11:52. My breath slowed, the air thickened, and somewhere in the wind, I swore I heard her voice, soft, like it was echoing through time. Do you remember the rules? No talking, no looking back, and never dig alone. At 11:58 p.m., the hum returned, low, from below, from within, like the earth had lungs and it was preparing to exhale. The wind died, the compass vibrated against my chest, and then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, measured, moving through the grass behind me. But I didn't turn. I couldn't. Then she was there, standing beside me. Not a ghost, not a vision, but solid, present. Her fingers brushed mine and took my hand. I didn't look. I didn't speak. I just closed my eyes and held on. Midnight struck, and the ground opened. Not like an earthquake, like a memory peeling itself back. The dirt didn't crumble. It parted, revealing stairs, the same as before, wooden, worn, alive, lit from beneath by a glow that felt familiar. We descended together, still silent, hand in hand. At the bottom, the door, smaller this time, round, like a portal, and on it, etched in faint silver letters, Loop Sync version 17, final option available. Wren released my hand, pressed her palm to the door. It opened. Inside, a chamber, circular, wider than the last one, lined with bookshelves, drawings, maps, journals, all labeled, all catalogued. Memory made tangible. But at the center, a machine, old, half mechanical, half organic, vines wrapped around levers, dials grown into tree roots, and next to it, 2 chairs, wooden, facing each other. Wren sat in one. I sat in the other, still not speaking, still not looking directly at her. She placed something on the table between us. The final capsule. Not a lunchbox. Not a peanut butter jar. Something else. Clear glass, filled with water. Inside, a single folded page. I recognized my handwriting. She nodded toward it. I lifted it out, unfolded it, and read. Version 1. Wren moved in. We met. We buried our first capsule. Version 4. The capsule was opened too early. Memory corrupted. Version 6. Wren forgot. I forgot. Harold died. Version 9. The door opened without us. The loop snapped. Version 14. I chose to leave. She stayed. We lost the field. Version 17. We both returned. We both remembered. We held hands. We chose. The machine between us beeped. Once. A screen lit up. Choose loop state. Reset. Exit. Merge. We looked at each other for the first time. Really looked. And Wren smiled. Not sad, not afraid, but ready. She whispered, "You decide this time. I trust you." I looked at the options. Reset would bring us back to 2006, to the day we met. Do the first capsule. Exit would sever the loop, erase the field, forget everything. Merge. Merge was unknown. Merge meant all versions at once. All memories, all lives, all selves, together. Real. I reached forward, pressed 3. The machine clicked. Word. The lights dimmed, and I felt it. A wave passing through me, pulling every summer, every letter, every kiss, every fight, every night under the stars, into place. Not as scattered fragments, but as a single, unbroken life. Wren reached for my hand, held it tight. The machine beeped one final time. Merge complete, version fixed, memory restored. The capsule closed, the field above us faded into light, and we rose. Back on the surface, the sky was changing. Morning, dawn. We stood in the center of the grass, side by side, breathing, laughing, alive. She looked at me and said, finally, aloud, "We did it." I smiled and whispered, "We always do." To be continued in Part 6. Part 6. This summer that stayed. July 18th, 2025, 5:47 a.m. The sun had only just begun to rise, brushing the edge of the field in gold, but Wren and I were already walking through the tall grass. Neither of us had slept. Neither of us had said much. And we didn't need to. We remembered now. All of it. The original capsule, the loops, the resets, the time we both tried to stay, but forgot halfway through. Even the version where Harold, her turtle, had been the one to lead us back to the field, crawling into the middle of a chalk circle she'd drawn with her eyes closed. Every cycle, every try, every failure. And now, the merge. It hadn't erased the past. It had woven it into the present. We were both the kids who met at 7 and the 25-year-olds who had returned. We were everything in between, and somehow we were still us. Wren reached down and plucked a wild daisy, held it to her nose, smiled. "This one smells like version 3. How do you even remember that?" I asked. "Because That was the summer we accidentally used soda instead of water to mix the dirt. The whole capsule was sticky. Oh yeah, I laughed. The ants claimed it. She nodded. You cried. I was mourning my Walkman. You were mourning your mixtape, she corrected. You said it was your masterpiece. It was. She tossed the flower at me. I caught it and tucked it behind her ear. We spent the morning walking the edges of the field, mapping, documenting, marking every spot where a capsule had once been. There were 13 total, at least the ones we'd managed to recover. Each one held a version of us that was just slightly different. The shy Liam who wrote poetry and never let anyone read it. The loud Wren who recorded her own audiobook versions of Goosebumps. The summer we fought and stopped speaking for 3 weeks, only to dig separate capsules and leave apology letters in each. We weren't just reliving memories, we were rejoining them. And it felt whole. Around midday, we sat in the center of the field with the final merged capsule between us. It was the glass one, the one that had appeared in the underground chamber. Inside, all of our lives. A single folded paper with drawings, letters, snapshots. We opened it together. Inside, a map. Not of the field, not of the neighborhood, but of us. A timeline, scribbled and crossed out and reconnected, showing all the versions, all the loops, all the resets. And at the center, circled in red ink, the one that held, Wren tapped it. That's us now. I nodded, but there was one more note written in the bottom corner. Anchors can still drift. Only memory makes it real. Write it down, share it, or it fades. That night, we went to her old house. It was still abandoned, furniture covered in sheets, the smell of time thick in the air. But in the attic, we found a box of old journals. Her journals, the original book of versions, every page handwritten, dated, with notes about who we were becoming. I flipped through one marked Wren 12.0. She'd drawn a picture of the two of us sitting on the swings behind the elementary school. Below it, he forgot again today, but I remembered for both of us. Maybe next time he'll remember me too. My throat tightened. I looked up. Wren was watching me. You did, she said, eventually. Too many versions later. Still counts. We spent the next 2 days rebuilding the field. Cutting the grass, replacing the marker stone, lining the capsules along the tree stump like a museum exhibit. We even built a little bench, same design as the one her dad made when we were 9, so visitors could sit and listen to the wind. We weren't just keeping the memory, we were giving it roots. On July 21st, we buried one final capsule, just the two of us. Inside, a USB stick, a recording of everything. Our voices, the tapes, the letters, a scan of the notebook, and one final message. To whoever finds this, we're real, we were here, and we chose to stay. We placed it in a metal box, wrapped it in a scarf Wren had worn every summer since we were 13, and sealed it with a new symbol, W∞L. Then we buried it under the old tree's roots. At sunset, we sat on the bench and watched the sky burn orange and violet. Do you think it'll last this time? I asked. Wren didn't answer right away. Then, I don't know, but if it doesn't, we'll find each other again. How can you be sure? She turned to me, smile soft, because I already did. To be continued in Part 7. Part 7, Letters We Never Sent, July 24th, 2025, 11:16 a.m. The morning was quiet, too quiet, as if the field was holding its breath again. But this time it wasn't fear, it was peace. Wren and I had been spending our days cataloging everything, scanning pages, taking photos, recording audio. Every memory we could remember, we tried to preserve. Not because we thought it would vanish, but because we'd lived too many versions where it had. That morning, I woke up to find Wren already sitting at the old bench by the stump. The scarf she'd used to seal our last capsule was tied around her ponytail. She was sketching something in the notebook, the new one, our merged log. I brought her tea, sat beside her, waited. Finally, she spoke. "Do you remember the version where we sent each other letters every day for a year?" I blinked. "Sort of. We were 13? She nodded. "You wrote on notebook paper. I used the back of grocery receipts. We left them in the crack of that mailbox down the street, the blue one no one used anymore. Until it got stolen. Until it got teleported," she corrected. "Right, your theory." She smiled. Still my favorite. She flipped the notebook around so I could see her drawing. It was a sketch of the mailbox. Only this time it had wings. We decided to recreate it. Not exactly, but we built a small wooden replica, painted it blue, dented the top, just like the original had, set it on a pole at the edge of the field, and then we did what we always did. We wrote letters. Mine said, "Dear Wren, version 7 was the hardest. That's when I started forgetting not just you, but myself. Thank you for coming back anyway. Thank you for remembering. Love, L." Hers read, "Dear Liam, version 9 was the loneliest. You left and I waited, and the field never opened. I swore I wouldn't come back, but I did. And you were there. Love always, W." We folded them, placed them in the box, closed the lid, and just for fun, whispered, "Safe travels." The next morning, the box was empty. We didn't speak about it, didn't speculate, didn't even smile. We just understood. Maybe some earlier Liam and Wren would read them and feel less lost. Maybe that's all the field had ever been, a place to pass forward the memory we weren't ready to carry anymore. That night, it rained. A soft, steady rain that smelled like every July we'd ever known. We sat on the porch of the Carter house, watching the droplets beat on the bench and roll down the marker stone like tears that didn't belong to anyone. "What happens now?" I asked. "We live," Wren said. "Just normally? Whatever that means. I think we earned it. No loops? Hopefully not. And if they come back?" She turned to me, eyes tired but fierce. "Then we remember, and we fight for each other, like we always have." We spent the next few days turning the Carter house into something new. Not a home, not exactly. More like a sanctuary. Each room was dedicated to a version. We labeled boxes by year, hung photos by loop, tacked letters to walls. We built shelves, logged audio, created a digital backup we uploaded to 5 separate drives and hid across town. Not because we were paranoid, because we were prepared. On July 31st, we buried one last capsule. We didn't plan to. We hadn't talked about it. But that morning, the field had a silence that asked for it. So we gathered what we had. A photo of us from the merged version. A hard drive with everything on it. The final page of the book of versions, now filled in with both of our signatures. 2 rings we'd worn in version 12 when we pretended to get memory married. Under the willow tree, we placed them in a copper box, sealed it with wax, and buried it beneath the rebuilt bench. Afterwards, we lay in the grass, heads close, arms brushing. "What would you say to Wren 1.0? I asked. She thought, then said, "Stop looking for signs. The magic is already inside you." That's very you. What about you, Liam 1.0? Invest in Apple stock. She threw a leaf at me. Be serious. Okay. I tell him not to be afraid of forgetting. That the right memories always find their way back. She reached over, held my hand. The sky turned from gold to dusk. We didn't move, didn't need to. Because for the first time in 17 versions, there was nothing left to fix, just something left to live, to be continued in Part 8. Part 8, The Ones Who Remembered, August 1st, 2025, 12:03 a.m. We didn't know what the future would look like, but we knew it would start here, in the field, with the capsules beneath our feet, the stars overhead, and the hum of something deep and old and gentle, vibrating beneath the earth like a sleeping heart. And we were awake, for once fully. The past didn't feel like weight anymore. It felt like light, like threads we could trace, not chains we had to break. The loops were closed now, not erased, just quiet, like they'd done their job and were finally allowed to rest. We were still us, Wren and Liam, version 17. But also, still, the past didn't feel like weight anymore. With the capsules beneath our feet, the stars overhead, and the hum of something deep and old and gentle, vibrating beneath the earth. Wren 1.0, Liam 4.3, the version 12s who almost got it right, the version 6s who barely held on. We remembered them all, and we honored them by continuing. That morning, Wren came into the kitchen with a stack of index cards. She was smiling. "What are those?" I asked. "Assignments." "Homework? I thought the loop was over." "It is, but memory still needs maintenance." She handed me a card. On it, bury 1 capsule each year. Record everything. Kiss her before you forget. I laughed. Very subtle. She handed me another. "Paint the mailbox. It's flaking." And another. "Ask the field what it dreams about." I raised an eyebrow. "How exactly do I do that?" "It'll tell you, if you're quiet." We created routines, not to survive, but to live together. We planted wildflowers around the bench, cataloged birds that visited the field, left out old tapes with blank labels to see if anyone or anything responded. We even received one, August 6th, a tiny cassette wrapped in leaves, left inside the mailbox with a post-it. To the ones who remembered, from the ones who almost did. We played it that night. White noise, then laughter, then our own voices, younger, distant, unsteady, from a version that hadn't held, but had tried. Wren cried. I held her. "They almost made it," she whispered. Maybe they still will. We started hosting visitors. Not many. Just people from the neighborhood. Kids curious about the strange bench in the middle of the field. We told them it was a memory station, that they could leave letters there for their future selves. Some did. Some just sat in the grass and stared at the clouds. One little girl asked, "Can trees remember?" Wren smiled. "Better than we do, sometimes." By mid-August, we had a plan. A simple one. Every 10 years, we'd return to the exact spot and open a new capsule. Not to reset, not to fix, but to witness. To mark that we were still here, still choosing, still loving. We left instructions in the new notebook, the one with a white cover and silver lettering. Title: Instructions for the next time we're us. Inside, pages and pages of memory, ritual, and advice. Final line: if you forget, dig. If you're afraid, wait. If you love, stay. The field will remember the rest. We still joked, still fought, still got on each other's nerves. Because being merged didn't mean being perfect. It just meant being whole. Even with the cracks. Especially with the cracks. One night, I asked her what she'd do if we ever looped again. By accident, by fate. By the rules we didn't fully understand. She looked up at the sky. Same thing I always do. Which is? Find you. I still wrote letters, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd leave them in the field some nights, under the bench. Sometimes Wren would reply. Sometimes she wouldn't. Sometimes the letters would be gone, with no sign of who took them. We never questioned it. Some stories are meant to continue in whispers. On the last page of the merged capsule. The one we buried under the old tree's roots, we left a final note. For them, for anyone, for everyone. We made it. Not because it was easy, not because we were perfect, but because we chose to remember again and again until memory turned into love. There are still mysteries, still parts of the loop we don't fully understand, still questions that echo quietly in the trees, but they don't scare us anymore. Because we know who we are, we know where we are, and we know, more than anything, that we were here, together. Some people leave stories behind like shadows. We left ours in the dirt. And maybe, just maybe, someone like you will find it. The end, of course.